The quiet suburb of Willow Creek, just outside Seattle, Washington, was the kind of place where families still believed in traditional values. Large colonial-style homes lined the streets, manicured lawns stretched under tall evergreens, and neighbors waved politely from driveways. At 1427, Maple Lane lived the Hargrove family Dr. James Hargrove, his wife Margaret, their eldest son Ethan, a respected cardiothoracic surgeon at Seattle General Hospital, his wife Claire, a high school English teacher, and their two teenage children Mia and Lucas. Then there was the youngest son, Ryan, currently pursuing his PhD in environmental science at Oxford, and his wife Sophia, who had moved into the family home after their wedding just over a year ago. Sophia had arrived from a small town in Oregon, soft-spoken, gentle, and eager to please. With Ryan away for what would be nearly 6 years total, including fieldwork in Southeast Asia, she stayed behind to care for the house, cook meals, and keep Margaret and James company. In their eyes, she was the perfect daughter-in-law, always home by evening, never went out without asking permission, and handled household chores with quiet efficiency. Claire, meanwhile, was perpetually busy grading papers late into the night, running extra tutoring sessions for seniors, preparing for college entrance exams, and shuttling the kids to soccer practice or debate club. The Hargrove household functioned smoothly, each member playing their assigned role. That Thursday afternoon in mid-October, the sky was the heavy gray typical of the Pacific Northwest. Rain had tapered off to a fine mist. Ethan's shift at the hospital had been unusually light, no emergency surgeries, only routine consults, so he decided to head home early for once. He texted Claire that he would be back around 4 p.m. instead of 8. She replied with a heart emoji and said she would probably be home after 9 because of a last-minute parent conference. Mia and Lucas were at after-school activities until 7. Margaret and James had driven to Bellevue for an old college reunion dinner and would not return until late. Ethan pulled his silver Audi into the garage. Noticing Sophia's modest blue Honda parked in its usual spot, the house felt unusually still. He loosened his tie as he stepped inside, the scent of cinnamon from an earlier batch of cookies lingering in the air. "Sophia," he called softly. No answer. He hung his coat and climbed the wide oak staircase. His own bedroom was at the far end of the hall. Ryan and Sophia's room sat midway, door slightly ajar. As he passed, a soft rustle caught his attention. He glanced inside and froze. Sophia stood in front of the full-length mirror on the closet door, turning slowly from side to side. She wore a new dress she must have bought recently, deep emerald green, fitted through the bodice and hips, the kind of dress that accentuated every gentle curve. The fabric caught the late afternoon light, filtering through the sheer curtains, making her skin look luminous. At 28, she was still in the first bloom of marriage, slender yet softly rounded, long chestnut hair loose over her shoulders, bare feet on the cream carpet. She had not noticed him yet. She lifted her arms, smoothed the dress over her waist, smiled shyly at her reflection, then twirled once, the hem flaring lightly. Ethan's throat tightened. He should have walked away immediately. Instead, he stood rooted just outside the threshold, watching the way the dress clung and released with each small movement. He had seen Sophia every day for more than a year, at breakfast, at dinner, passing in the hallway, but never like this. Never unguarded. Never so alive. She caught his reflection in the mirror and gasped, spinning around. Color flooded her cheeks. "Dr. Hargrove, Ethan, I did not hear you come in." She crossed her arms instinctively over her chest, suddenly self-conscious. "I was just trying this on. It is new. I do not really go anywhere to wear it, but sometimes I like to see. It looks beautiful on you," he said before he could stop himself. His voice sounded lower, rougher than usual. Sophia blinked, flustered. "Thank you. But Claire wears things like this so elegantly." She always looks so put together even after a long day. She gave a small, nervous laugh. I should change. Dinner won't cook itself. Ethan nodded, but his feet did not move. You do not have to rush. No one else is home yet. An awkward silence stretched. Sophia shifted her weight, the dress whispering against her legs. Would you like coffee? Or I can make tea while I start chopping vegetables. He shook his head. I will help you. Claire's stuck late again, and Mom and Dad won't be back till after 9. Let me do something useful for once. She hesitated, then smiled uncertainly. Okay, if you really want to. They descended to the kitchen together. The space was warm, modern but cozy granite counters, stainless appliances, a wide island where Sophia usually prepped meals. She pulled ingredients from the refrigerator: chicken, bell peppers, broccoli, garlic. Ethan rolled up his sleeves and stood beside her, washing vegetables under the faucet. For a while they worked in companionable quiet. He chopped onions while she seasoned the chicken. Their conversation stayed safe. How Ryan's latest email said the research was going well, how the kids were doing in school, how busy the year had been lately. But every so often their elbows brushed, or he reached past her for the cutting board and caught the faint floral scent of her shampoo. Each small contact sent a tiny jolt through him. At one point, Sophia turned to grab the salt from the shelf behind her. Ethan was closer than he realized. Their bodies collided softly, her back against his chest for a split second. She stumbled. He caught her waist to steady her. Time seemed to stutter. Neither moved. Her breathing quickened. So did his. Sophia, he murmured, the word almost a question. She looked up at him, eyes wide, pupils dark. We should not, she whispered, but her hands had already curled lightly into the front of his shirt. I know, he said. And yet neither pulled away. The kitchen clock ticked. Rain tapped the window. Somewhere far off a car passed on the wet street. Then Ethan leaned down, slowly, giving her every chance to turn her face. She did not. Their lips met, tentative at first, then deeper, hungrier. Her fingers tightened in his shirt. His hand slid from her waist to the small of her back, pressing her closer. The kiss tasted of salt from the chopping, of cinnamon from earlier, of everything they both knew was wrong. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Sophia's voice trembled. This is a mistake. We have to stop. Ethan rested his forehead against hers. I do not want to. She closed her eyes. Neither do I. That is what scares me. He kissed her again, softer this time, and she let him. Then he lifted her gently onto the island, dishes pushed aside. Her legs parted instinctively. He stepped between them. The dress rode up her thighs. His fingers traced the hem, then higher. They did not speak anymore. Words would only remind them of husbands and wives, of parents downstairs, of children who might walk through the door any moment. Instead, they let hands and mouth say everything. Minutes later, maybe 10, maybe 20, they were upstairs. In Ryan and Sophia's bedroom. On the bed still made with the white duvet Ryan had chosen before he left. The framed wedding photo on the nightstand smiled down at them, Sophia in ivory lace, Ryan in a navy suit, both radiant. Now she lay beneath Ethan, dress bunched at her waist, hair fanned across the pillow. He moved above her with careful intensity, every thrust a mixture of reverence and desperation. She clung to him, nails digging into his shoulders, biting her lip to keep from crying out too loudly. Afterward they lay tangled, sweat cooling on their skin, hearts pounding in unison. Reality crept back slowly. Sophia turned her face into his neck. We can never do this again, she whispered. Ethan kissed her temple. I know. But even as he said it, his hand stroked down her side, memorizing the shape of her. Outside, car tires crunched on the wet gravel of the driveway. Margaret and James were home early. The bedroom door clicked shut behind them, but the sound barely registered. Rain drummed steadily against the window panes, muffling everything outside. Inside Ryan and Sophia's room, time felt suspended. Ethan lifted Sophia again, this time carrying her the few steps from the doorway to the bed. She wrapped her legs around his waist instinctively, arms locked behind his neck. Their mouths met in frantic, open kisses as he lowered her onto the white duvet. The wedding photo on the nightstand stared at them, Ryan's easy grin, Sophia's radiant smile on their wedding day 18 months earlier. Neither of them looked at it. He peeled the emerald dress up over her head in one slow motion. Underneath, she wore simple ivory lace, nothing extravagant, just soft and feminine. Ethan's breath caught. He had imagined this, he realized with a stab of shame brief. Forbidden flashes he had always pushed away. Now the fantasy was flesh and heat beneath his palms. Sophia tugged at his shirt buttons with trembling fingers. "We are going to regret this," she whispered, even as she helped him shrug the shirt off his shoulders. "I already do," he answered honestly. "And I still can't stop." Clothes fell away in quiet rustles. Skin met skin, the contrast struck them, both her softness against the harder planes of his body. Years of surgical precision, now channeled into something raw and uncontrolled. He kissed the hollow of her throat, the curve of her collarbone, lower still. She arched beneath him, fingers threading through his hair, whispering his name like a plea and a warning at once. When he entered her, they both froze for a heartbeat, stunned by the intimacy, by how right and how terribly wrong it felt. Then movement began, slow at first, exploratory, learning each other in a way no family dinner or hallway glance had ever allowed. Her nails scored lightly down his back. His mouth found the sensitive spot behind her ear. The bed creaked softly beneath them. Sophia's eyes stayed open, locked on his. Tears gathered at the corners, not from pain, but from the overwhelming collision of guilt and need. "I have not felt like this in so long," she breathed against his lips. Ethan kissed the tears away. "Me neither." They moved faster, chasing release, chasing oblivion. The room filled with quiet sounds, gasps, murmurs, the rhythmic creak of the mattress springs. Outside, the rain kept falling, steady and indifferent. Afterward, they lay side by side, breathing hard, bodies still touching at hip and shoulder. The afterglow was brief and fragile. Reality returned in pieces. The wedding photo, the faint scent of Ryan's cologne still clinging to the pillowcase, the knowledge that Margaret and James could walk through the front door at any moment. Sophia curled onto her side, pulling the sheet up to cover herself. "We can't ever do that again," she said, voice small. "Promise me." Ethan turned toward her, tracing the line of her spine with one fingertip. "I promise," he said. But even as the words left his mouth, his hand kept moving, memorizing the dip of her waist, the gentle flare of her hip. "Unless you need me." She closed her eyes. "That is the problem. I already do." They stayed like that for several long minutes, silent, entwined, listening to each other breathe. Then Sophia sat up abruptly. "We have to clean up. They will be home soon." Ethan nodded. They dressed quickly, avoiding each other's eyes. She remade the bed with precise, almost frantic movements, smoothing every wrinkle. He straightened the pillows, adjusted the photo frame, so it sat exactly as before. They worked in wordless tandem, erasing evidence, but not the memory. Downstairs in the kitchen, they tried to resume normalcy. Sophia resumed chopping vegetables she had abandoned earlier. Ethan wiped down the island where they had first kissed. The chicken sizzled in the pan. The scent of garlic and soy filled the air. They spoke only of practical things. "Should we set the table for 4?" she asked. "Mom and Dad said they would eat out, but maybe they will want dessert when they get back. I will slice some fruit." The front door opened at 8:47 p.m. Margaret's voice carried from the foyer. "We are home early. The restaurant was packed, so we left before coffee." James followed, hanging his coat. "Smells wonderful in here. You two cooked?" Sophia forced a smile, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Just stir fry. Nothing special." Ethan appeared calm, sleeves rolled down now, leaning casually against the counter. "Figured I would help since Claire's running late." Margaret studied them both for a moment too long. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You are flushed, Sophia. Are you feeling all right?" Sophia touched her cheek. "It is just the stove. It gets warm." James chuckled. Ethan never could stand the heat in the kitchen. Surprised he lasted this long. They laughed too brightly, too quickly. Dinner passed in strained politeness. Margaret and James recounted their evening. Ethan asked after old friends. Sophia served seconds, refilled water glasses, kept her gaze lowered. Every time she glanced at Ethan, heat bloomed in her chest. Every time he looked back, the same thing happened to him. Afterward, Margaret insisted on helping with dishes. "You two go relax. You have done enough tonight." Sophia murmured thanks and escaped upstairs first. Ethan lingered, drying a plate slowly. Margaret watched him. "You are awfully quiet tonight." "Long day," he said. She nodded, unconvinced. Upstairs, Sophia sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands. The emerald dress lay folded on the chair. She could still feel his touch everywhere. Ethan appeared in the doorway a few minutes later. He did not step inside, just leaned against the frame. "We are playing with fire," he said quietly. "I know. If anyone finds out, they won't. Not if we are careful." He exhaled. "Careful is not enough. We have to stop." She looked up at him, eyes glistening. "Then why are you standing here?" He had no answer. Instead, he crossed the threshold, closed the door softly behind him, and pulled her into his arms again. This time it was slower, gentler, almost tender, almost loving. They did not hear the soft creak on the hallway floorboards. Margaret had come upstairs to ask if Sophia needed anything for tomorrow's grocery list. She froze outside the door, hand raised to knock. Voices low, intimate. A sigh. A murmured name. Margaret's heart dropped into her stomach. She did not knock. She did not open the door. She simply turned and walked back downstairs, face pale, hand shaking. James looked up from his newspaper when she entered the living room. "Everything okay?" Margaret sat heavily on the sofa. Her voice, when it came, was barely audible. "No," she said, "everything is not okay." Margaret sat rigid on the sofa, her hands clasped so tightly in her lap that her knuckles whitened. James lowered his newspaper, his bushy eyebrows furrowing at the tremor in her voice. The living room, usually a haven of comfort with its overstuffed armchairs, family photos lining the mantel, and the faint tick of the grandfather clock, now felt oppressively small. Rain continued to patter against the bay window, but the storm outside paled compared to the one brewing within these walls. "What do you mean?" James asked, his tone shifting from casual to concerned. He set the paper aside and leaned forward. Margaret's eyes welled with tears. She had always prided herself on maintaining a strict, moral household rules about curfews, respect, family dinners every night. Their sons had been raised with those values. Ethan, the responsible eldest, a pillar of the community as a surgeon. Ryan, the ambitious academic, off making the world better. And their wives, Claire, dedicated and strong. Sophia, sweet and dutiful. How had it come to this? I heard them, she whispered. Upstairs. In Ryan and Sophia's room. Ethan and Sophia. They are. James's face drained of color. What are you saying? They are having an affair, or something. I heard voices, intimate. I did not go in, but it was clear. He stood abruptly, pacing the Persian rug. That can't be. Ethan, our Ethan, with his brother's wife. Margaret nodded miserably. I wish I was wrong. But the way they were acting in the kitchen earlier flushed, avoiding eyes. It all makes sense now. James stopped, rubbing his temples. We have to confront them. Now. Not tonight, Margaret pleaded. Claire will be home soon. The kids too. We can't have a scene. He hesitated, then sank back into his chair. First thing tomorrow. Before anyone leaves the house. Sleep evaded them both that night. Upstairs, Ethan had slipped back to his own room after a final, whispered goodbye to Sophia. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment the thrill, the shame. Ryan's face in the wedding photo haunted her. How could she betray him like this? And yet, the loneliness of the past year, the ache for touch, had been unbearable. Ethan filled a void, but at what cost? Ethan, in his bed across the hall, wrestled with similar demons. Claire slept beside him when she finally arrived home at 10:30, exhausted from her meeting. He feigned sleep, but his mind raced. He loved his wife, his kids, his life. This was a lapse, a stupid, impulsive mistake. But Sophia's softness, her vulnerability, it had awakened something dormant in him. He vowed it would end here. Morning dawned gray and drizzly. The family gathered for breakfast as usual: pancakes, coffee, the kids chattering about school. Mia, 16, complained about a history test. Lucas, 14, boasted about his soccer goal. Claire rushed through her meal, preparing lesson plans. Sophia served quietly, her eyes downcast. Ethan avoided looking at her altogether. Margaret and James exchanged glances. After the kids and Claire left school bus for the teens, Claire's car for work, James clear his throat. Ethan, Sophia. We need to talk. Living room. Now. The air thickened with tension. They followed without question, settling on the couch opposite their in-laws. Margaret's face was stern, James's jaw set. What is going on? Ethan asked, feigning confusion. Do not play dumb, James said flatly. Your mother heard you last night. In Sophia's room. Sophia's hand flew to her mouth, a gasp escaping. Ethan's stomach plummeted. Dad, it is not. Not what? Margaret interrupted, voice cracking. Not you betraying your brother, your wife, this family. Tears streamed down Sophia's face. I am so sorry. It was a mistake. Just once. Ethan shot her a look once, but he stayed silent, letting her speak. We never meant for it to happen, Sophia continued, sobbing. Ryan's been gone so long. I was lonely. Ethan was kind and it just happened. James slammed his fist on the coffee table. Kind. That is what you call it. Your family. This is incestuous, disgraceful. Margaret wiped her eyes. How could you? Ethan, you are the eldest. The example. And Sophia, we trusted you. Ryan trusted us to watch over you. Ethan finally found his voice. It was my fault. I initiated it. Sophia tried to stop me. Sophia shook her head. No, I did not. I wanted it to. The confession hung heavy. James stood, pacing again. What do we do now? Tell Ryan, Claire, the kids? No, Sophia begged. Please, do not tell Ryan. He is so far away, focused on his studies. It would destroy him. And Claire, Margaret pressed. She deserves to know her husband's a cheat. Ethan paled. Mom, please. Think of Mia and Lucas. This would tear everything apart. James stopped, glaring at them. You should have thought of that before. Now you tell us, how do you fix this? Silence. Sophia twisted her hands. I will move out. Stay with my sister in Portland until Ryan comes back. No, Margaret said firmly. Running won't help. You live here. We watch you. Ethan nodded. We will avoid each other. No more alone time. I will take extra shifts at the hospital. James snorted. You think that is enough? Trust is shattered. The discussion dragged on accusations, apologies, pleas. Margaret lamented the family's reputation in Willow Creek. What if neighbors found out? James worried about Ryan, toiling abroad, oblivious. Sophia promised to call Ryan more, to recommit. Ethan swore it was over. By noon, an uneasy truce formed. They would keep it secret for now. But one more slip, and everything came out. Sophia and Ethan were to act normal, but under watchful eyes. Lunch was tense, silent. Afternoon passed in separate rooms, Sophia in the garden, pulling weeds despite the drizzle, Ethan in his study, pretending to read medical journals. Claire returned home at 5, sensing the mood. Rough day, she asked Ethan, kissing his cheek. He forced a smile. Just family stuff. The kids noticed too. Why's everyone so quiet? Mia asked at dinner. Margaret deflected. Tired, sweetheart. Pass the potatoes. That night, Sophia cried herself to sleep. Guilt gnawed at her Ryan's loving emails, his trust. She deleted a half-written confession, too scared of the fallout. Ethan lay beside Claire, her head on his shoulder. I love you, he whispered. She murmured back, asleep. But his mind wandered to Sophia down the hall. Days blurred into weeks. The house returned to routine, but cracks showed. Margaret's eyes followed them suspiciously. James spoke gruffly. Sophia and Ethan stole glances, but never more. One evening, a month later, Ryan called excited about a breakthrough in his research. Sophia chatted brightly, but her voice cracked once. You okay? He asked. Just miss you, she said truthfully. After hanging up, she found Ethan in the kitchen, alone. Margaret and James were at a bridge game. Claire at parent-teacher conferences. Kids at friends' houses. We can't, she said as he approached. I know, he replied, but his hand brushed hers. They pulled apart when headlights swept the driveway. The secret held. But for how long? Each carried the weight differently, Sophia in isolation, Ethan in denial, Margaret and James in sorrow. In Willow Creek's quiet streets, the Hargrove facade remained intact. But inside, love's boundaries had blurred, leaving scars that time might never heal. Families, after all, were fragile things built on trust, shattered by desire. The lesson lingered. True love respected lines, even when loneliness whispered otherwise.